We are educators as coaches, and we're dealing with a generation of athlete now who more than ever before is skeptical, but also highly intelligent. And so we have to think more about how we're going to provide information about the why behind our philosophies and the things we're trying to teach. You know, it creates a barrier at first because they're going to ask, like, I don't know, I don't believe you just on face value, because their parents are no longer telling them that the coach knows best in all circumstances. But if you explain things and you start to dig into the science behind coaching philosophy, they buy in, I think, more than any generation before them. And so there's an opportunity to really connect with those kids by understanding how to be better educators as coaches.
What has changed for me over the last 5 to 8 years has been trying, I think I talked a little bit about it in my talk earlier, trying to set up situations where kids can learn more about themselves as opposed to me just dictating everything all of the time. And this is what you've got to do. And I have to give reasons why, and I have to show the process and allow them to work the process as opposed to just helping them have them do it exactly as I said. I don't know if that makes 100% sense, but trying to create situations where they can learn as opposed to me just doing it for them. I think there's a lot of overcoaching, and I certainly have been guilty of that.
Mm-hmm. Warning, my talk probably should have been entitled, like, Chasing Excellence, Doing the Least Amount of Damage. Like, I think it's not about doing damage, but I do think my job, like Tom's, like everyone's, I think sitting up here is, I think swimming is the vehicle through which they're learning all the tools they need in life. Like, life isn't getting any easier. So it's like swimming is a vehicle. If I coached a different sport, that would be it. But I think swimming is actually the best one. It's individual, it's team. But I do still feel my role is to help them. I have to put the person for the swimming. Because all the things we're talking about, whether it's like high standards or expectations, like, I've got to teach them how to fail. I got to teach them how, and it's such a I feel like I'm the last safety net before they go out into the world. And I think it's an honor and a privilege, like, because if I can have them fail and get hurt and crush it and want something so bad they think they're going to die and then not get it, and they learn, oh, wow, and it did kill me in swimming, and they keep moving forward, it's like, it's pretty awesome. And that's what helps them get faster. It's those lessons that help them get fast. I mean, we could talk about drills all day long, but it's also everything else with that, and creating opportunities for them to fail and succeed and do it around people that care a lot about it. Yeah.
I disagree with all these guys about process. I just care about results.
Not that.
No, I'm kidding. The question was what has changed as far as me is concerned. Mileage less, quality more. I've followed Coach Urbanchek's method of distance on certain days, stroke and IM on certain days, quality. Usually with me, quality days are Wednesday and Saturday with tank suits. So it's not as much mileage in total, although Monday and Thursday we do quite a bit of mileage. But that's a lot different than it used to be 30 or 40 years ago.
As a sports scientist, I like to measure everything. And I remember, I like to learn. I don't like just quantitative analysis. I want to quantitate, okay? What is here? And when we're looking at the technique, videos and other stuff, yeah, it's good, it's nice, I remember 20 years ago, worked with Mark swimmers and more than that. Before that, we didn't have technology to measure. Now we can measure swimming technique, and we can exactly tell what's working, what's not working. And that's a big improvement. And once collect the data, again, you don't know how to interpret correctly. You're collecting a lot of data, then you're thinking, analyzing all this stuff, retesting again, and finally figuring out, okay, that's how we can fix some mistakes. That's how we can maintain speed longer during the stall. That's how we can reduce the drops of the speed during the stall. That's how we can improve upkeep, which we learned as well, and many other things. Now we have not only technology and understanding what mistakes are, but also how to improve that in most effective ways. That's what, in the last probably 10 years or so, working on biomechanics and a lot of research doing. So testing already 87 Olympic champions and about 17,000 total swimmers from multiple countries.
What is too young, or what is the appropriate age for that, for at least ownership to be introduced to the athlete, and so that they're taking responsibility for their own work, for their being on time at practice, all the little things that add up. My 3-year-old carried his own bag to swim lessons every day, and when he left it there, I sent him back in to get it. I can't stand, and I will let parents know when their 10-year-old walks in and mom or dad's carrying a bag, okay? I mean, it goes way beyond all of that as far as when it's not just swimming's 50% of it, maybe even less than that of the whole processes these guys are talking about. You gotta teach them a little bit of responsibility. What the age is, it's gonna be different, but to tell you the truth, I don't think 6, 7, 8 is too early to be able to teach a kid to take care of his stuff. As simple as that. And there's too much what's it called, helicopter parenting going on. And at MEAC, we've always tried to avoid that stuff as much as possible. And let the kids be responsible with things. And it has over time become increasingly more difficult because their parents are doing everything for them. And the piles of stuff left after every practice is unbelievable. I mean, I know my own kids because, I trying to bring them up like I'm thinking. My daughter, I don't know if my son ever lost anything. Of course, he became a Catholic priest, so maybe he had maybe he had some connections there or whatever. But my daughter didn't lose anything until like her junior year at college, and she always kept track of her stuff because I instilled that in them. And I think the more you can do to talk to your parents to let their kid walk. We don't have parents on the deck or really even watching practice that much. And, to drop the kid off, let the kid walk in, let them be responsible, and to Carol, let them fail a little bit, let them lose something, but don't go after a place for them the next day. Make them be responsible. So I don't know if there is a too young they can start being responsible for themselves. I think it's our job, at least does, the age group we're on, or even the head coach we're on, to instill a little bit of that responsibility on as early as you can start doing it.
Okay, I'm going to add on to Tom because this is an MBAC story, kind of to the next level. So I was at an Olympic Games, and I had gone on a van to go to the pool for finals. And I was on the USA staff. I was the head coach of that one. And I sat on the bus. Chase, Kalish, Michael were on there. And there's another athlete gone on there. And when you think you're going to win a medal or something, you have to take a bunch of clothes and shoes that you have to wear just for that. So they come out of these boxes, and then you have your equipment bag, and they've always had theirs. And then we're sitting there, and this other athlete came and got on, and his coach was carrying all that stuff. And Chase, MBAC athlete, both of them, texts me. He's like, "Hey, Bob, carry my stuff into the pool. We need to go get the car up in him."
Michael were like dying. And I gave him a look, and I actually did respond. I will tell you what was in the intent. But that was the whole point. I don't do that. We do not do that. They carry their bags. They do all their stuff. I have never walked an athlete to the ready room in my life. They have to know how to handle their business and walk down there and take care of it. So I think that's what we're getting at here. And God knows, please, if any of you people write event numbers on their hands, stop doing it. I went to a meet one time, and there was a coach of another little team, which, interesting enough, we took over the clean bond. He was sitting in his team area, and I had a line of 50 kids waiting for the coach to write their event number and heat on their hand. I'm sorry. I come on, read a program. You know, I go attend a couple of programs and put it around in the stands, and I always post one on the thing. They want to know what heat and lane are on that. Go read the program, find out where you're at. You come back and tell me which you're at. But
my kids were born, like, don't do anything for your kids that they can't do for themselves. For sure. Right? And it's like, I think other moms thought I was kind of the mean mom because I would make my kids actually, they're like, you're not going to give your kids a bath? I'm like, you know how to wash their hair? And if they were dirty, that's their fault. Like, they learned how to do it. And I've had kids, this is 12 years ago, we were writing thank you notes to, I don't know, people, their parents, something, I believe in thank you notes. And one girl didn't know where to put the return address. Like, she didn't know where to put the address anyway. She came up and she honestly said, how do I do this? Like, and I was like, wow. And I had another girl probably 8 years ago, and I'm not kidding. She didn't know how to use a can opener because I think she said, well, she didn't even know what it was. We were at the OTC, and she's she's learning how to cook, and she had one of those things in her house. It was like, I guess, like, no. So I'm like, all right, like, but I just felt it's wild how little some of these kids know and it's a complete disservice. Like, and then I get angry. Like, I can't get angry, but you just kind of have to meet them where they're at. But my patience is like this. So even if I see that on the recruiting visit that they can't say please and thank you, and they can't do things by themselves, and we've set them an itinerary and they can't figure it out.
It's not the kids, it's the parents.
Right.
I have a story.
Yeah.
It's many moons ago, but I was coaching 8-year-olds, and I was at an 8 on them, and I happened to pick the worst place on the deck to sit was right at the end of the locker room, and this was when parents would walk through the locker room, and I was sitting near the door, and it must have been 15. Do you need to go to the bathroom? Do you need something to eat? Parents were telling their kids, so I can't take this anymore. So I got all the kids up. I circled them all together. These are 8 and under kids. I said, how many of you know how to go to the bathroom by yourself? We get the hand. How many can figure out whether you're hungry or not? And raise your hand. I said, good. You're all going to go up to your parents and let them know you know how to go to the bathroom, and if you need something to eat, you will go to them. And they all went, yeah. And they went up, and I never saw another parent again.
My pet peeve is being on time. I think with college athletes, you can really hold them accountable. With age group athletes, in most cases, you can't. It's the parent. And I will tell the athlete, you need to tell your mom that you have to be here on time or you won't be able to practice. And I'll give them 3 times, and then I'll send them home. And after I send them home, they're on time. But it's amazing. It's the same ones that are late every time. And it's not the kid. And there's no way you can have the kid, start the car and bring him to practice. It's training the parent.
I think the scary thing as a coach about giving your athletes more autonomy is, well, what if they make the wrong choice, right? And I think about when I was doing more club coaching, there were times where I would give the athletes an opportunity during taper, for example, to make decisions, decide what type of pace work they wanted to do, maybe even have some input into whether it was going to be a longer taper or shorter taper. But I think the thing to keep in mind is that, A, you give athletes more autonomy. It's central to motivation. When you own something, it motivates you. It becomes yours. And so you are giving them that power to be more motivated. But secondarily, now they have to take responsibility. So if you give them the chance to have a longer taper and it doesn't work out, now it's not just on you. It's on them too. And you can have a dialogue with your athlete. And again, with this generation of kids, I think that's what they want. And my experience was positive with that. I found that kids, when things didn't go the way that we expected them to, but they were given a voice, then our conversation afterwards was, all right, how can we fix this together instead of casting blame? And that's accountability. And that's what we're looking for more of, I think, with this generation of athletes.
Like them, swimmers also know what they need to work on. Just take the ownership of that. And some swimmers, they don't even know what to work on, what to fix. But once they know the drills, and I like them coaches delivering these drills to swimmers, okay, you have to work on this to improve or something else. That works much better than just coach knows only.
I think in terms of getting our athletes ready to psychologically perform, our Olympians have access to the resources that they need for sports psychology and mental wellness. But it starts earlier than that, right? Having awareness of mental health and mental wellness at the grassroots level, educating athletes on concepts within sports psychology at the club level is going to prepare them to be able to take full advantage of those resources when they get to the Olympic level. I think the fact that, Reagan has talked about, and Michael has talked about, and Missy has talked about having post-Olympic depression is indicative of the fact that even with those resources, they had not been working on it enough to be able to be in a happy headspace coming off of those Olympic Games, regardless of how they perform. And so for me, I'd love to see more kids have access to mental health resources and education at the club level to prepare them, of course, for performance. But also, I really want to see our Olympians in LA come out of LA happy and feeling like their identity is bigger than just as athletes, but they feel good about themselves as people too.
Want anybody memorize? I don't want any of my coaching staff memorizing cuts, because the kids always come up to us like, well, what's the cut under pressure? That's not our job. That's your job to know what the cut is. And then, different ages, different things. I think the goal setting process, wherever you start that in your program, for us, it's 11 and 12-year-olds start writing out their goals. They're their goals, not your. They're online as the coach. And so we take them, and we have ours. As you get older, you start having acknowledgments of what the expectations are for the group. And like if I'll have a meeting with the parent, I start with that acknowledgement that they signed and the kids signed. That's how we start a lot of our meetings. Is we're not covering any of this stuff because we've already talked about it. It's ownership that you and your athlete should have already taken. So I think the goal setting process, it should change depending on how old your kids are, how old the athletes are. But it's their goal sheet, not the coaching's court. But these new motivational time standards just came out, and there was a whole bunch of them. Like 70% of them are slower, and so being slow, off what they were before, and most of them, the distance are the most egregious ones. They've gotten drastically slower on the distance. And I believe, and somebody who's probably been a part of this would know better than me, I believe it's an aggregate or an average of the previous some number of years. And so if that's really what it is, that's an alarming thing. Sure, us that are the guys that are going to get some of these happening, and we're lowering our standards.
It makes no sense to me, because I think it was either 92 or it was ran in all. Yeah, it did. The breaststroke sucked in the United States. Just did. And they made the time standard faster for Olympic trials.
Not slow.
And said,
not slow.
You're not any good. you better get better to make it. And then it got better. So we just done the opposite thing, or the motivational time standard. Any big a deal? Do you lean on them? I don't know. You're telling me
Clearly, nobody's asking us, but like Lark did it when he was at USA Swimming. He made up this meet. I was on that staff, and he was like, "We're gonna get people faster because we realize that if people take an international trip before the Olympics, they're gonna do much better." So Mark made up these time standards, and it was time standards. It wasn't we're gonna take X amount of people. And he made up this time standards, and how many people qualified for that thing in Japan? 72? Like, he got in trouble that from USA Swimming because we took like 70 people or something to Japan. And it was awesome because people wanted those time standards so bad, and they were fast.
Yep. Carol talked about the Japan trip. We had a lot of people that made the Olympic team off that trip. Rebecca Soni improved 2 seconds to make a team, and then won gold medals and set world records. And I give that trip a lot of credit for that and motivation.
Do we not say, do we maybe think that decisions like that might also kind of be part of why at the top level we don't achieve? Right? Certainly, it doesn't help. For sure. It certainly doesn't help. Because the philosophy is, it takes what it takes. You have to either do it or not. And if you don't, we have 2 people, fine. But I don't think you should ever make those slower. Ever. Like, they can stay the same for a year, but they should not be slow.
We all need to do something better. Like from the 8-year-old to the 25-year-old, we all need to find a way to be better. My opinions, continue to kick more. Strength and power is important. I think in our program, there's a whole lot of talking about going 30-20s and 60-40s, closing out the last 20 meters of each 50, closing out races. Seems like right now we're very speed-oriented, which is awesome. That's great. We're breaks the 15-meter mark, but we're not as good from the 35 to the 50-meter mark. So getting into walls and closing out races, I kind of tell the kids all the time, you're never going to win being crappy the last quarter of your race. So, like, we have to get back to, I think for so long we were the negative split country, like everybody wanted to negative split everything. And I don't think that really works if the sport has become more speed oriented. But there is a happy medium in there. And I think watching Cage Madness over 800 is probably a good example how they have tweaked that kind of stuff. But I also think just getting everybody together. I think Bob Money told me at lunch today, he was talking about a conversation that he and Schubert had back when it was Lochte and Phelps and Cleet Keller and Peter Van Hecke. And I mean, those are some killers, but Schubert might have been in charge. And Bob was telling me that he got everybody in a room. It's like, he lived with the 800 relay for a long time. It was like 8 years until those guys started swimming coach. And we decided, I just remember thinking, I had Michael, Rajic was coaching PBK before I got to Michigan. And there was Lochte, Troy on Lochte. And I remember thinking, I got to go get this 200 free going so we can do this relay. That's what it's going to take, the pieces, right? And once we started putting that together, and then we added another piece, and we kind of went to 2004 and had a nail biter, but we got there. And then after that, it started rolling. But the thing that all those guys had in common, Lochte, Phelps, Van der Kay, Cleet Keller, who was the one on there, every one of them swam the 400 meters. Every one. Nobody wants to do that anymore. They want to go 50 and a 200. It is not going to get us to 143. You're going to have to go 345, 143. We don't even think about going 345. You break 350 anymore. It's like amazing. I feel like when I was in Michigan, I had 8 guys that could do that all the time. It's just like, we don't do that anymore. It's just not part of the deal. And it's exactly what he said. If you want to be good at the 200 meters, 500 yards, you must be swimming in. Luke Hobson, right? Leon Marchand, all these guys that are doing that, they're the ones that do a good 200 meters. The ones that do 200 yards, they do 100 meters. So you have to adjust your thinking, and you have to be willing to get in and do the work that's going to produce a 400 meters good enough that these guys can do the 200, right? Instead of just trying to go up to the 200 from 100, that's never going to take it where they want to go. People don't want to hear that. It's just the truth.
then prove it over and over and over. Who's our best 200 freestyler woman? Is it still Allison Schmidt?
Yeah.
153.6. What did she do in the same meet? Oh, she got second in the 400 meters by a tenth in the Olympics. That's the level you have to swim on to get those together, right? So I think that's something that's really important, and we're sort of losing that.
And just add in, so it was 3.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, 21.6 and 153. Right, there you go.
It's like, it's not sexy enough, you know?
Not yet.
It is. But
For sure.
people have relied on Katie just, you know,
Yep.
they're just like, oh, great, we have this duel now. Well, but
Yeah, this team age group leading up to the Olympic. Where is the break that has led to the dip in the middle distance freestyle?
Well, There are some so-called sensitive periods of development in long-term training, and I was discussing all of that in my course as well for coaches over here. And if we are missing aerobic development sensitive period, we are done. Basically, it will be very hard to develop good aerobic fitness. And that sensitive period of development for kids starts at age 11 for girls and 12 for boys. How many of the coaches are know about that and focusing on aerobic development at that age? I don't know how many. Based on my conversations with coaches, very little. And I'm going to show them models how much you should reach annually swimming at sensitive period of development. It is very few teams age. Around 8 came from St. Piper's. He told me, oh, we exactly on this volume. But how many other teams are? I think they're much lower. From my experience at this, I know that probably teams that I was working with, 70-80% of them, they're not reaching these volumes. And they're not developing good aerobic conditioning in that age. And that transfers to elite level swimmers. They never will be good because they didn't do good aerobic training. They're not recovering well because aerobic training improves muscular capillarization, more oxygen is coming, more nutrients coming, metabolic products are removed faster, and we are not developing that. We can work as hard as we want later on and will not develop middle distance and distance well. So we'll develop sprinters. And we are doing pretty good, but unfortunately only in shortness.
Well, I got a 13, 14 boy who swims a 24 and a 53, okay? All I do, I pull out the top tide and said, you got to go 19. You suck at a 50. And then she's good at it. And it's like, there's no bones about it. I don't bull crap. I don't bull crap with the kids. If they suck at something, I'm going to let them know. I'm going to tell them why and let them understand why. But it's also important for that. That's where by you say positively negative or negative positivity.
Yeah,
I think it's positive to be negative and tell the 12 these kids.
Give them the feedback. And I think that's one thing MBAC has always done. It's like, well, that was pretty slow. And then like, yeah. But it wasn't like you're bad. It was just like, this has to happen. That's not going to be good enough. You need to change this. And I think we've kind of gotten out of being real with the kids. And that's where they don't get feedback that helps them to get better. You don't have to deliver it mean. It would never be like that. It's just a matter of fact. Like, look, dude, you can keep swimming your 22-second 50, but I think you have some opportunities here. And if you want to change it, then these things are going to need to change in practice. Right?
Yeah. As just a regular club coach, coming out of college, that's what you want to coach as a recent college athlete. You just want to coach sprinters. That's what you were doing in college. But that's not our role as club coaches. As a head coach of a team, I would go to Tom Himes' meet every December. Every year, MBAC has 8 girls who are flirting with being sub 150 in the turn free. Every year. Is that Paul Yetter? Absolutely. But that's also what he's been doing for decades with age groupers. He focuses on endurance. He's building the base. And then when they get to the senior level coaches, they get to the college coaches, then they can do that anaerobic work that really makes a difference. I grew up listening to Bowman's talks on capacity versus utilization, right? That stuff, that's the foundation. And so it starts with us. We do the right things. We know our role as club coaches. We give these people the opportunity to really take advantage of those last steps and put our athletes in a position to succeed.
It's as soon as they can do a reasonable mile, I see no need in putting age group kid in that does a 29 in a mile. I just don't see any point in that. as soon as I think they knew we're in 20 minutes, they swim it. So we have a fair number of, at a 10-year-old this year, swim the mile 19, which I thought was pretty decent for a 10-year-old. And, but pretty much almost all the 11-12s, unless all the decent 11-12s will swim the mile in the fall.
The best thing about getting kids from Tom is that there's nothing I could give them that they think is too hard. And they think I'm the nice one. Like, what? But my point is they have been challenged, or appropriately challenged. They have been challenged, and they know that work's important, and they've done that kind of work. So then you can take them to the next level, and they don't kind of balk at it. They just think that's what we do. And it is what we do. So I think that's important. I don't think you have to challenge a kid by making them swim 25 hours a week, but you could challenge them in the hour and a half that you have. You know, you can push them a little bit, and you're not going to probably do that every day, but I think that's a big part of it. And just having that as the ethos of your program is important. I have an idea.
Yeah.
Okay, for age group swimming, there is no 50 and 100 at the competition.
Well, it's funny you said that. We actually, and it might have been when you were there, we run a bunch of meets, and we put some serious thought into not offering the 50 free.
Yeah.
And we folded it, ended up putting it in there. But of course, I'm
Now you get all the money.
That's right. We need to bet to money to keep the club.
no, I don't know if that was it, but I know RLC, they're swimming the 50s a stroke or whatnot. We do some of that, but I got to tell you, from the age group kids, I'm really, sprinting is just like, I just don't care. I really, what they do in the 50, they get out full. We go swim 50. Yeah, it's sort of like, okay, you can swim whatever 9 events. One of them's bound to be a 50 because there's just not enough of the other events. It's like, you get out, they do a time, you go, I'm not spending any time with your 50. That was great. Go. And let's move on to the other events. And because I think, I'm also a believer in I don't know, these guys were not, but you can't, the kids either got speed or they don't have speed. I don't think you can teach speed.
I was just going to say the same thing. Here's the unpopular take of the weekend. You either have speed or you don't. Train for endurance. You can give them endurance.
If everybody wants to get a scholarship,
Yeah.
there's no scholarship in distance.
Collegiate drip.
That's it.
And it's really because that relay swimmer is so valued in terms of that short course. Correct.
When they added the 200 relays, it screwed us.
It changed the whole dynamic.
It changed the whole dynamic.
I had a D2 guy tell me he thought that a good solution would be adding the 1,000 into the program. One, because the 1,000's probably a little more relevant to 400-meter freeze, 800-meter freeze, but it also gives you distance guy that can swim down to the 200 a lot, which becomes more valuable. You can go the mile, you can go the 500, you can go 1,000,
Yeah.
maybe a 4 IM, maybe a 200 fly, maybe you can swim down to the 200 on your 800 freestyle relay. All of a sudden, that guy might be worth a full ride at your college, as opposed to right now, your miler, he's too out. It's part of the game. It is, right? It's a game. And one of it isn't going to win you a championship.
And, a lot of teams, you could win a championship without that. It's been done recently quite often without any of that, middle distance or distance. It can be done with the springs. And got to be really good at those, but it can be done on the relays and that. And getting them ready for an 800 free relay short course yards is not the same as 800 free relay short long course meters. They're quite a different event.
Some of you guys won't even relate to this, but some of you are old enough to relate. Tom Jager, who was the world record holder in the 50 in high school, swam 1,500. Matt Biondi, who was one of our greatest sprinters, when he was in high school, swam the 500. Shirley Babashoff won the 800 and made the team in the 100. You can do both. But the point that he made about doing it when you're young is huge.
Yeah. I went as a coach, and I wasn't recruiting him at the time because he was actually too young, but
I went to club practice and saw Nathan Adrian do, I think it was 9,000 long course practice in high school. Does he need to do that in college? Absolutely not, right? And he certainly found his and did excellent in his profile. But that was part of his journey that allowed him to go to the next step.
Maritza,
Yeah.
I mean, Maritza swam in Florida, and I mean, she got the crap beaten out of her. Is awesome. She swam a mile. I mean, yeah, with Brooke Bennett, she swam distance. Her freshman year, she won the mile at SECs. The next year, I think she won the mile in the 500. The next year, she made us a bet and swam the 500 and then went down to the 100, and then she held the American record in the 50. I mean, but there's a reason why. He had that endurance. Yeah. Like, it is wide open.
It's wide open. No, I think definitely the 2028 people, they're the 11-12s right now, right? That's who you're looking at. And I think if coaches, I know at MBAC, we always thought that way. You know, what are we going to do with these kids? And the other thing about MBAC that most people don't know is for the majority of the time, there was like 90 kids on the team, right? And when I got there, it was like 120 at our biggest. We didn't have big numbers to choose from, so we had to develop the kids we had. And so I think that really also impacted the way that we coached them. It's the same kind of thing. You know, once you find one, you got to make sure that you do everything you can to not only keep them going, but to keep them in it, you know?
We need more coaches like the guy who coached at Santa Monica City College when Lenny Kraserberg won the JC championship, and he brought him to me and he said, I'm not good enough and I don't have people to swim with. Now that guy was unselfish and developed an Olympic champion. And when Lenny came to me, it was a 209 200-meter backstroker, and I said, see that guy there? He won the Olympics last night. You stay with him until you drop, and you'll win the Olympics next time. And he did.
What does USA Swimming need to do? Where does the United States need to move forward over the next 4 years to have an elite performance on group swimming?
There's been a lot of observation about the fact that the two most successful Olympians were not Americans, but they were trained by American coaches.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that they are in a position, particularly Bob, to give an observation of why these other guys are being so successful and why we aren't. Bob, you've coached a lot of international swimmers in a lot of places.
Yep.
And I know you haven't been.
I did have an opinion. Don't
Don't be afraid of it.
I am unafraid. I mean, the reality, Leon is so successful because, number one, he wanted it more than anything. It was in Paris. He had a lot of reasons to want it, right? You know, he was well prepared by a coach in France before he ever came to me. And the coach in France and I, and the head coach of France and I, Jocko, the performance director, and the technical director, Julien, and everybody there is invested in him doing well. And for him to do well, they know that I need to do well, and they're invested in me. Not just financially, but just they care. They have been on our pool deck in Arizona 3 times in the last year and a half. And Texas one time, that's 4 times, right? They are invested in Leon and supportive. And Nicola and I have a symbiotic relationship. We're on the same page. Both of us are willing to give up some stuff. Leon's training with him all fall. It's perfect. He trained with him some in France before I got there. He's willing to send him over to me to do these things. And the coaches are working together for the best thing for this athlete. Okay? I was on the French staff. Well, Leon is kind of a special athlete, of course. The reason I chose to go with the French staff is to keep all of that out of Team USA, because I don't feel like I could be wearing a Team USA shirt and have Leon light this thing up in Paris and me be in the center of that. It would just be weird. It's much easier for me to be over here, coach my Americans, to do that. So that's one part of that equation. But the cooperation that we have from them is not mirrored from the other side. And one of the reasons that USA failed is the coaches did not work together. They certainly did not want to work with me, and that's okay. But I had 6 people on the team. They didn't work with each other that well, in my opinion. And when we get back to doing that, USA will be number one again because we have the resources, we have the athletes. I always go back to when I started, the coaches on the national team were Mark Schubert and Richard Quick, Greg Troy, Jack Barrowly, David Marsh. All of these guys were super competitive with each other, and I'm not sure they would all be best friends if you said, hey, you know. But when you came to USA, team came together, you would not know one bit. Everybody was concerned about what we're doing for USA right now and the best thing for the athlete. If that meant that I'm compromising a little bit, okay, and I'm willing to do that too. I feel like we kind of lost that a little bit. I think we've lost that cooperation among the coaches, and some other things have kind of crept into how this thing was put together and run, and we ended up getting hurt by that.
I think I think what Mark said, I think it's too peep. I mean, I guess I was the only one sitting up here that was on that Olympic stat. I mean, I was doing my best.
As you did. That had nothing to do with
No, I was a team player. I mean, my coaching heroes were in the room last night, like they were being honored. That is my blood. It is Jack. It's Shoulder. It's looking on those stats. It's watching. I mean, it was exactly what we mentioned. It was Troy and Terry and Bob and Dave Marsh and, Jack. And I thought, okay, well, I guess if I coach till I'm 70, I may be on a staff at some point. Eddie's the best at coaching everybody else's kids at the meet, at NC2As. I mean, Eddie will come up to another kid at NC2As from a relationship, Jack would. So I think that's where I wanted to model my own behavior because I thought that was normal. That's why I'm in the sport. It's relationships. It's not, I wish I could say it was more about, it is about the times, but it is about the relationships because I think the relationships get you to those times. I gave a talk once about Bob and Michael. They wouldn't have had the times without the relationship, whether it was contentious and awesome and anywhere in between. All right. So was it an unbelievable experience? Absolutely. Was it different than I expected? Yes. I did not see or feel what I imagined it to be watching a lot of staffs come before. But it doesn't mean I'm mad that I was on. I have to say, I think we got to work on that. The second part is, I have been fortunate enough to be on international staff since 2005. My first World University Games trip in 2005. That's almost 20 years. I've been head coach doing the pole and World Championships now and a million things. And like all of us up here, I think it was a badge of honor for a long time, but we've done it for free. And you want to reward athletes. You want to reward performances. You're losing my interest real quick in saying yes to everything. I mean, I did it with a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old all the way up to my kids are adults now, and I've missed a lot of stuff.
Good.
And you don't feel very valued. I mean, you're talking about people coming to your programs, people coming, nobody comes to Texas because they think we have it all. They're like, oh, well, they have the resources, or they're lazy, or they come and then they're like, well, what do you need? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? What are you offering? I think there's a lack of respect. I don't feel it. We're their rice bowl. They just want us to produce and take all the credit. And then when it's shitty, they're like, oh, well, we didn't swim that well. Well, nobody's calling me saying, what do you need to be great? It's just, and if they were saying oh, wow, this is this, it's not that I'm going to coach harder for the money, but you feel more value. You feel seen and heard and appreciated. And then you put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
So that's.
My experience with Canada is very similar to Bob's. They've been on my pool deck 4 or 5 times in the last 16 months. I speak to John Atkinson once a month. They have never said no to anything we've ever asked of them, whether it be money to travel, resources for nutrition, or whatever. I mean, there's a whole laundry list of things that we've asked for. They've never said no to anything ever. They embraced me as being part of the staff for the same reasons that Bob was welcomed on the French staff. So this is the young lady who's winning the most medals for her country, and I think I'm the first non-Canadian to be on a Canadian Olympic staff. It's a big deal for them, and it's something that I didn't take lightly either. And I'm about as patriotic as it comes, but I wore that happily proudly for them. But resources were not an issue, and I don't know if that always is the case here, even though we have all of the resources on the planet. I can't speak to all of the ins and outs of Team USA. I mean, I haven't been on a whole bunch of Olympic staffs, but I mean, I certainly from the outside looking in, it was a strange feel, like watching some of the U.S. staff. But I agree that, the competition is important. You were talking about not having long course pools. Well, there's lots of people who've gotten it done without long course pools. Yeah. You've got to go and race long course, right? You've got to value long course racing. Stay there a couple of days. Chuck Batchelor, he did all that stuff all the time. He'd go to a swim meet, go a couple of days early, stay a couple of days late, race, long course. I also think that getting our best athletes together is really important. That's one of the things that when Summer first came to me, I wanted to go try to find more meaningful race opportunities for her. For many reasons, COVID, all that kind of stuff, she got pretty sheltered on where her racing opportunities were. In the United States, we've got no reason to not have our best athletes together, banging heads and making each other better. Iron sharpens iron. When I first got to the opportunity with Emma to go to the camp in 2021, Coach Schubert was in the room when all the coaches are brought in of the athletes, coaches of the athletes that have made the team, and he stood up and said, the number one thing you guys should do during this camp is to make sure that we all get together and race and allow them to compete. It'll make them better down the road. And I just think you probably could do that more often in the United States. And I also think that again, I can compare and contrast, but they do lots of relay camps trying to make sure that their 200 freestyle is very strong, their 100 free is very strong. And I think I was talking to somebody the last couple of days. We need to value that 200 meter free. That 200 meter free is important to. It's important for people who swim down to the 50. It's important to the people that swim up to the mile. It's important for our relays. And I just don't see our 200 freestyle in the United States progressing the way that it needs to. It's very stagnant right now. Somebody probably knows better than me, but we should have multiple men going 140.
Yes.
And for sure. What was it? 42 still?
2.9. 2.8.
We should have more women going 154, 153 in the 200 free. And I think that would have a trickle-down effect to both sides. And then my last piece to kind of talk about short course swimming, I've got stupid ideas like in the U.S. Open when it's long course in the winter, college guys that want to enter in non-conforming times, they shouldn't have to enter. If they want to swim the 100 fly at U.S. Open in the long course pool and you want to enter in a non-conforming, meaning not the long course, you should enter in the 200 yards. You should have to have the 200 yards is far more equivalent to the 100 meters. So I think you can still do lots of really good short course swimming, but I think you have to value 500 free if you're going to be a 200 meter freestyler. For sure. I think you have to value the 200 yard fly if you're going to be a 100 meter flyer. You look at these guys that are going 129s or faster, or want to be faster than the 200 free. Those guys are not going 143 in the 200 free, but they're probably pretty good in the 100 meter free. So I think we've got to use short course swimming smarter. I personally think short course should be done in December. We should all go to long course in January, but that's a whole different.
Yeah.
That's all knocking up about. Yeah, actually, no. I still. That's it's easy for me to say. Good, I'm not a college coach, right? So
He did at one point. Remember the Buffs, like 2004? I mean, we could make up some cool rules again and have NCAA swimming short course meters. Set so many American records. I mean, that was fun, right?
And is there any place that we need to get to, which is where we have all of our best swimmers most of the time throughout the next 3 years leading into the
Austin, Texas.
Dave, yo, and you're my daily. I was just going to say, Bolton. But the next person that those man's aren't the heads of it.
Well, we tried that when Jonesy Skinner ran a national camp in Colorado Springs, and he received so much criticism for the coaches because they were selfish and they wanted the kids to swim with them. We had centers of excellence. Same thing.
How important is it that the national team director is one who is going from site to site working with coaches and coaches?
It's everything. When Mark was the national team director, he was in Baltimore. If he wasn't, he was calling me. What's going on? How can I help? What can we do? If somebody was in trouble, Mark would go and help them. And I think that really saved a lot of people who probably would have fallen by the wayside. So I think that's important. Seems fair.
Is there enough time, in your opinion, to turn this around in 3 years?
Yeah.
Yes.
It all gets down to the individual coaches and the individual athletes that have the ability to do it, coming up with a plan that makes sense, a plan that helps them progress through the years until the Olympics, not kind of pop out 1 year, 2 years before and not maintain it, right? There's timing is a part. So you're going to start looking at people, and there are probably a lot of names we don't even know that could be a factor there if they're properly developed in a sensible way through that time period. I think that it's exactly, and that's where I think national team director comes in as well to help formulate that, right? Kind of identifies people and make sure they're in the right situation and have resources and that they can kind of move through. But I think we've lost a little bit of the sense of long-term planning. I think a lot of things are short-term now. Everybody wants to do everything, and you can't do everything. Like this year, Leon's doing the World Cups this fall. Reagan's doing the World Cups this fall. She's going to do a short course World Championships, an event that I'd have avoided like the plague my entire career, the short course worlds. I think they're on my mid, mainly because at some point they have to train, right? But now we have 4 years in the squad. They're going to do that, have a little fun, do something different. And then by January, we're going to be kind of locked into whatever our long-term plan is for LA. And then you're going to start having to say no to some things. You can't go to every meet that comes up. You can't go, particularly when they're pros. And there's a big pull of that because they can make money there, right? So you have to kind of decide what's the payoff. Is it better for you to be able to have a sustained training program that's going to take you to a higher level of performance at the very end? Or is it better for you to kind of take these short-term hits, good things that might compromise that? So I think that we need to get back as a nation to thinking that way. The Australians absolutely think that way. They have LA in their mind, and everything they do between now and then is going to be a progression towards that. It's not just going to be like a one-off. Well, this season we got a Worlds. Let's do the best we can. The next one we have a Worlds. Let's do the best we can. You have to sort of think a little bit more long game, and you have to know how you want your vet program to evolve, how you want to put certain pressure on them in which ways. Is it in the training this year? Is it in the competitions? You can't do everything all the time. So you have to kind of select that menu. And I think we could do a better job of that. And if we do, it'll serve us well down the road.
You just haven't told you loves it.
I think anything that kind of gets people excited about watching something. The other thing that we could do, and Carol could speak to this more than me, is because at Texas, we're trying to do things to create a product that's more watchable, right, than just a normal swim meet, right? So we have production value in a couple meets a year. We're going to have a very high production value, short duration, different event program, and you have to kind of be willing to give up a few things, right? Like there's not going to be 1,000 in there.
Your team can't swim. Like
Exactly.
I had a meet last year against NC State, and there were more people there than I think at NC2A fun.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
It was an hour and a half. I mean, it was big time. There were pyrotechnics. I mean, they invested money in it, but it was. I mean, they sold alcohol in stands. That doesn't hurt. I'm not kidding. But were you there? Over then hoops. Okay, so I mean, there are some ways that you can do it, and now other teams are actually calling us, or at the SEC meetings, they were like, I said, I'll be more than happy to talk to anyone about it. This isn't, we're not trying to hoard the ideas here. It's just like, but you got to invest, and you can't like, oh, well, not everybody's going to get to swim Friday night. Nope, there's one heat. But I mean, it makes your team more competitive.
It does.
And look, this is fun. So that's why people play soccer, you know?
Well, then, it's USA Swimming is the same thing. They're going to come to me like next week. Somebody's going to say, we got to get our entries in for this pro swim that's February 23rd. It's going to be like tomorrow. I'm like, what do you want to swim? I'm like, I got no idea, right? So you just come up with something. And then it's like Carol says, all the people enter and half the people don't come.
Right, because they make you enter in this mad rush.
And there used to be a time when I was coaching where you could say, well, this meet ripped really well, but I'd like to see this other event, so I want to do that for the next one, and you could just kind of enter that. But now you're doing it 6 months in advance. You just can't get it done. You can't think that far ahead. You have to kind of see something before you make a decision about it. So, yeah, there are some things that could improve. Okay, I totally agree. 100%. I was when we have recruits, we take them before the game around the football field, and we're standing there, the parents and the recruits, and the basketball recruits walk by. And these guys were like, if just one of them would swim. You know what I mean? So you're 100% right. Yeah, we have a talent pool, and sometimes we get a little bit higher end, and sometimes we don't. But yeah, I realize that there are other people, but we also have huge numbers that Australia doesn't, right there. Are they 10, how many? 20 million. 20 million people versus us, 300, yeah. So the other thing is they get to do the things where the best swimmers train together because there aren't that many of them, right? They don't have a collegiate season. They can everything is geared around the international season. Whereas for us, we have a lot of people, a lot of different things going on, and just finding a date to get people together is very difficult. Not that it can't be done, but you have to want it really bad to make it happen. And there, I think it's easier to kind of manage those smaller numbers of people, and they really have to take care of them. They have to do the good job because they don't have any up. So I think sometimes we get a little bit complacent because we can just we'll get it out if these don't work out.
Did a little research on the Australians after the World Championships and called a number of Australian coaches, most of whom didn't tell me the truth. But I called Bud McAllister, who's an American who coached in Australia for a long time. And he said every day at practice they talk about beating the Americans. They're passionate about it. And what are we passionate about? Getting a college scholarship. We're just not passionate about doing well at the Olympics all the way down the line. And everybody said, well, that's an unrealistic goal. Well, I bet if you talk to every Olympian, they'd say when they were 5 or 10, they talked about making the Olympics. We need to make it a higher priority. Sure, getting a college scholarship is great. And I'm not saying we should talk about hating the Australians because I don't think they're as good as us. You don't hate somebody that's inferior. But seriously, we got to get serious about it. I think we're getting some better leadership, hopefully, at USA Swimming. But let's face it, the leadership is us. Everybody complains about the leadership at the top of USA Swimming. The leadership is the coaches. I think we need more respect. I think USA Swimming should pay coaches by performance, from the age group level all the way up. We spend a lot of money on bullshit. If we want to be good, we better think about how can we be better. Not better, but good. One male gold medal is pathetic. It's not bad, it's pathetic. And it's our responsibility. That's all I think.
Thank you for sharing.
May I add to that? I know Mark for 28 full years, probably more than that. Sure. And I remember when he started to work with USA Swimming. I was head of sports science over there. Mark came on board. So his first meeting was very motivational. He came, similar like now, and told that we have to win every gold medal at Olympic Games. We can win, and we need to focus on every gold medal. I think it's very doable. I think so many swimmers, so many great coaches, so many great swimmers in the country. And I'm immigrant over here, moved more than 25 years ago already. As you know, probably most of you, but I love United States and helping athletes and coaches all around the country. And I think winning all the medals, it's very doable, all gold medals. If you have very high goal, then you'll strive for this goal, and finally we'll win, maybe not all of them, but 50, 60, 70%. We used to win 50% back in 2016 and earlier, and more than that. So that's why we can win these medals. And I think using also sports science and other things, and a lot of coaches already, that's also a very important step. And
How would sports science, how can it be implemented on the road to Los Angeles? What is your vision for how it can promote, enhance success for the United States?
yeah, I mean, Los Angeles is right around the corner with Peru. It's not too far, okay? You'll still have the same swimmers that we have now in Los Angeles, but already in the system. And in order to perform really well for the same swimmers, we need to change some. You cannot do the same thing and hoping for better results. And to change something, there are a lot of different ways to change. You can use sports science as biomechanics, which we're doing a lot of research as well, biomechanics. You can use sports science as a recovery. Training design can improve. And based on our mathematical models, I mentioned in my presentation on the first day, on only biomechanics, we should swim now about 3 seconds faster world record 100 freestyle than it is right now. And then this Chinese swimmer broke record 46.4. Everyone, wow, so fast. I can prove you that today we can swim 43.9 and not 46.4. You're swimming very slowly. World records are slow. 5-10 years from now, nobody will be looking at this world records. And so there is so much things to do, and including sports science, and we can improve our performances really a lot. And I don't know if current generation of swimmers, probably difficult for them would be to swim 43.9, but we will start from the beginning, from Learn to Swim program, and we just launched new science-based Learn to Swim program. So we teaching kids avoids all the mistakes that we see in elite level swimmers. They're just not learning this mistake. They don't know what is this mistake, leaning on the arms or opening arms in butterfly or in breaststroke too much. They don't know this mistake because they're not teaching them. How fish is swimming? Fish swims without arms, all right? And they're relying so much on the arms. Okay? There are a lot of other differences between humans and fish, such as there is no neck. That's why we need a limited neck when we swim. Okay? Keep very tight. There are a lot of drills to do that. There are no knees for fish, correct? So we need to eliminate the leaks as well. Kicking like a fishtail from the body. So there are a lot of different things to learn, and I'm learning about that also every day, basically, and developing different drills and testing these drills
So I think there are so many ways to teach and swim way, way faster games.
But seriously, we got to get serious about it. I think we're getting some better leadership, hopefully, at USA Swimming. But let's face it, the leadership is us. Everybody complains about the leadership at the top at USA Swimming. The leadership is the coaches. I think we need more respect. I think USA Swimming should pay coaches by performance, from the age group level all the way up. We spend a lot of money on bullshit. If we want to be good, we better think about how can we be better. Not better, but good. One male gold medal is pathetic. It's not bad, it's pathetic. And it's our responsibility.